Hi, everyone. Welcome yet again to Njuguna Podcast, a youthful, timeless conversation space that we are creating here. Njuguna Podcast is dedicated to young people, those that feel youthful at heart, those young people that exist in different communities, those communities that have young people, organizations that work with young people, for young people. These are conversations that will engage you, uplift you, and keep you moving. And I am your host, Caroline Momanyi.
Welcome everyone to Njuguna Podcast again. My name is Dosila Ogola. Yeah, I don't know why I'm feeling so nervous before I introduce the topic for today. I hope you got a chance to engage with episode 1 on identity, where we were able to touch on how we build identity from a general perspective. And in that way, today we're going to be discussing identity across generations.
And it's quite an interesting topic because when you talk about generations, you're thinking, God, that was way back, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then for us, we are saying, those clusters, of when you were born and the grouping that you existed in, and whether you know what it is or don't, it does not matter. But it's this conversation that will bring it to your awareness that that clustering is what we are referring to as different generations.
Yeah.
And we just want to highlight how they experienced how they experienced identity development. And so that we can learn from it. We can see what similarities are there, what differences, what are those common themes, and how can we continue to build this youthful conversation and impact this youthful population. Yeah. And to help us, unpack all that.
Yep.
Is none other than.
Yes, I go by the name Peter Njuguna Karanja. I don't know whether I say those are my M-Pesa names, but for the sake of my generation and age, my village title is Ziggy.
What?
So I also have another identity. Yes, that's the name my mother gave me, Njuguna.
Ooh, okay.
Yes.
I love it. So do we address you as Njuguna?
Or as Ziggy?
Whichever will roll.
I am leaning more to Ziggy.
Oh, you're welcome.
Ziggy.
Indeed, my dad calls me that name. He says Ziggy. Yeah. Even how he saved me on his phone is Ziggy.
Is Ziggy?
Yes.
Is this a name that you kind of had from
high school?
Wow. Okay. That's a bit later on. So
yes,
when we're talking about these generational clusters for you,
yes,
where do you fall like? And if you're not comfortable to give us the actual year, it's fine.
No. I am among the people who love when they were born. I was born 10 years after independence.
Wow.
1963, 15th of March.
How was the sun even in 19?
Wow.
Oh, in the 70s.
How was the atmosphere?
No, it was beautiful because people had just come from acquiring independence. And 10 years after independence, not much had changed since the country acquired independence. And therefore, everything looked like almost it's just picked from the colonial times.
Wow.
We had just one president, a new president. So people are still getting warmed up to the new president. The skyline was as beautiful as those days. We had a lot of trees.
Wow.
Most of the houses were either made of thatched houses, round thatched houses, or timber houses with some tin roof. Yes, even I remember in nursery school, we used to sing about the beautiful Rimuru that has tin roofed houses.
Wow.
Yeah, so that is the time I grew up in. I grew up in Limuru. And therefore, even the cold was different. We used to get frost bites, I think, not frost.
Wow.
What do you call them? Like almost like a frostbite, like you get super cold.
Wow.
To some point, like I remember at some point in primary school, they used to light bonfires for children to come in rounds to warm themselves up.
Wow, interesting.
Classes never had floors, so we schooled in classes that were dust.
Wow.
So you would carry water to sprinkle in the classes.
So that the dust
settles
down.
and you don't get, what do you call them?
Guys.
What do you call these? Jiggers. You don't get jiggers.
So you had a local jigger control measure.
Yes, and
Wow.
yes.
Interesting. And you see, when you're trying to describe the housing,
Yes.
and for my generation, when we speak about the same housing,
Yeah.
we refer to that as rustic.
Mm.
and you look very trendy for,
So one of the things you
this
know,
is interesting.
and I'm even thinking I must get back to Lastic.
Mhm.
The best characteristic of a madhouse
Mhm.
is that it's super warm. The acoustics are good.
Mhm.
There's no echo,
Mhm.
and they are super warm.
Wow.
Yes, although they never had a lot of lights, a lot of light, those that we lived in those days.
Mhm.
But I was lucky. We never lived in a madhouse.
Mhm.
My dad was a teacher, so we were kind of like the upper class of the lower class.
Interesting.
There's something like that.
There's something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good to know that poverty was that the marker of that time, was the identity of people,
Mhm.
and therefore, if you had a stone house, you were super rich,
Wow.
and that's the place I grew up in.
Wow.
I think just to push this conversation further, I think I would really love to hear how you built on your identity
Yeah.
growing up during
Mm.
those times. I'm thinking, imagining yourself as a 13-year-old, 12-year-old, 11-year-old,
Wow.
and trying to build on who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And also looking at what you already know from your parents or what you're seeing them go through and how they built their identity.
Mhm.
I think that would be something we'd love to hear you share.
So it's good I give you a backstory on my identity, is that I'm a fourth born in my family.
Mhm.
And when they went to enroll me in grade 1, I went to of course, I've told you our state house was not so badly off.
Mhm.
So they took us to a good school, but I couldn't pass the interview because it was a white lady who was interviewing us. Then the headmistress was a white lady, I can tell you,
Mhm.
when I grew up. And so I didn't pass that. So I went to a local primary school outside my house.
Mhm.
And therefore, when I was starting up the years you've said, for me, the identity was like just a normal kid who grew up with everyone around. My friends were just my immediate neighbor. And because I never had my brother or sister in school, so it was a very special, I felt special then. And I thought, and my mom was one of the teachers in the school.
Wow.
So I was a teacher's kid.
Mm.
That really elevated me in some way. So I was pretty known. And I can tell you a story that happened in grade 4,
Mhm.
is that we used to learn English in Kikuyu.
Wow.
How do you learn English
So
in
a
Kikuyu?
noun is, maybe you'll put translations, a noun is Retoria Kedo, Kodo, Modo, Kanaido.
Oh,
That's how we used to
Wow.
learn English. That's
That's
how I even know what a noun is.
wow.
Wow.
So when we were growing up, but I was lucky to have learned some sort of English.
Mhm.
And when I was in grade 4, I was called to when I was standard 4, because it was
It was
standard
standard.
standard 4.
Yeah. Mhm.
I was taken to standard 7
Mhm.
to tell them what a noun is. So even those ages, I was still a guy who was sort of popular, and people identified me with some sort of brilliance and some fear, because my mom was a school teacher. I mean, she was at one point my class teacher. So I grew up with a lot of protection. But of course, growing up in the village, you also had to earn your titles through fights. So I
Wow.
won a few and lost many.
And these were like physical
Fights.
fights.
Yes.
Giving
So what they would
wild.
do is you put saliva on your
On your fist.
on your fist, and if somebody dares you to fight, he rubs it off, or you draw a line on the ground. And if they cross it, now they are ready for war. So if you win, so you earn ranks in the class.
Wow.
And there are things you would not be commanded or summoned to do.
Would you do that as adults or parents watched?
No, these things would happen when either we are doing study. I don't know if you had those things. Study meant preps. Or people
Okay,
who call
alright.
preps. In the evening, when we are learning, the class will go dead quiet, and you'd fight without screaming.
Without screaming.
Without screaming, because the
How
teachers
do
are
you
walking
achieve
around.
that?
Or break the fight when the teacher walks close to you. There's somebody looking out for the teacher. So you would fight until you win, and therefore nobody would come to rescue you because it was not allowed for movement. Would clear the teacher's desk and you fight in front of the class until you win.
And so you are the winner, and then what? What do
If
you become?
If you won, of course, you came
group?
out with a lot of bruises. But if you won, it meant you went to the next rank. Now you fought the bigger boys or the bigger girls. And if you went just out there and thought you admired someone's pencil, if you took it, nobody would answer you because they know you can beat them up. So that's how we grew up, identifying ourselves with either you're a fighter. And those also were the days there was, I think, James Bond 007.
What?
And there was the Chinese movies.
You guys had TV?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
But we never watched it as much. It would be opened, those days, TV never used to open. What time? It used to open at 5 and close at midnight. So if you're a kid...
5 p.m.
Very
5
wild.
PM.
Very wild times, guys.
Yes.
I
So,
wouldn't have
and
survived.
weekends, it would open at 2 and close at midnight. So what it meant for programs that children would watch would happen at around 5 and 6,
Okay.
maybe 7. There was some news thing. So TV was not our thing, and you would not relate to a TV because nobody else had a TV in the compound. I mean, in the neighborhood. So it's not something you'd even speak to your friends about. And our identity was about how you relate to stories. So what was cool those days was not a TV, was to go to see factual films. Ours used to come on 7th. So we used to watch the 7th. We used to call it the 7th movie. The movie on 7th. I'm trying
Like
to do
the
direct
date
translation.
7th.
It only happens on 7th of every month. They would bring a track
Damn,
and a
guys.
projector and show a movie. And most of these movies would be either Western cowboy movies, would be Chinese karate movies, but few of them. And I think that those were the movies.
I think it's interesting to hear you say that. And it sounds like most of your activities in your time were very communal.
Very, very.
Like either you are fighting or there was a movie and all of you guys
or
swimming.
making
Where were you
toys.
swimming now?
We have a swamp called Manguo Swamp.
Wow.
You're swimming in the swamp.
And the problem of coming out of that swamp is that you'd come looking chalky. You would be white.
Wow.
It was a swamp. It was not deep. It was shallow.
Okay.
Guys, no.
With a lot of leeches.
You guys were living dangerous.
Very
Leeches.
dangerous.
Yeah.
Yes.
But did it inform your resilience? I'm wondering.
Yes, that's what I want to tell you. So for you to be able to swim in that swamp, you must have fought a war as a group of of kids from a certain side of the village. And there was this nasty family that used to beat all of us. And what they would do, they would wait for you to get, we never swam with costumes. We swam empty.
Empty meaning without clothes.
Nothing on.
Wow.
Just
but it was like one gender.
Butt naked.
One gender?
Yes, one gender.
Okay.
So girls never came to swim.
Okay.
I understand why it was a swamp.
Yeah, it was a swamp. So we would get in, and then these kids would come and take our clothes and walk to them towards the shopping center.
So how are you supposed to get home?
Walk towards them, begging them to give you or promise them gifts or something for them to give back the clothes.
Yeah. I think if that was to happen in my generation, that is bullying.
No. For us, it was character development. It was how we were formed. It was how you learned. Even now, I think we use those tactics today to deal with life. Yeah, you know if things happen wrongly, that you negotiate. Or you fight your way through.
Wow.
Yeah, you know there are two options for life. You can't say you'll go on social media. And I don't know, I don't want to blame generations, but for us, issues around, although there are still mental health issues, but around depression and that would not happen because we were owned by a community.
Yeah.
Even discipline was not done by your parents alone.
Yeah, I would also like to hear, how was it with your parents?
My parents...
Like in your home now?
Yes. Oh, one of the things you should know is that my parents my dad was born around late 30s and my mom was born in late 40s. So my dad...
And just to note that that's a whole different generation.
Okay, yeah. I don't know. I thought we were the same generation.
No, you're not.
So my dad... went to Mangu.
Mangu High School.
Mangu High School.
Wow.
And for him, the motto of Mangu High School is Jishinde Ushinde.
Jishinde
Ushinde.
Ushinde.
You have to deal with your own first
Wow.
before you can deal with the world.
Modern
Wow.
day, the mountain is you.
Is you.
Oh, the mountain is you.
Ah.
Okay, so Jishinde Ushinde was his, like his
Conquer
principle.
thyself.
And my father was a boxer.
Wow.
He attempted professional boxing. So for him, his identity was first of all the school.
Mhm.
And then his other name, apart from James, was Gerard and Primus, which meant that those are Latin names, I think.
Are you serious?
He's
Gerard and
Gerard and
Primus.
Primus, which means he identified with the Catholicism and being a Catholic parent or
Religion was very
religion
important.
was super important. My mom went to the Loreto.
The
Guru. So
we are honored to sit with the offspring of,
yes.
of such.
Don't worry which school I went to.
No, we will not ask.
Let's talk of my parents first. So we grew up with parents whose education was well structured. They had beaten all odds to get some of the best education then. There were still national schools then, and therefore education to them was life and death.
Wow.
My dad would kill me for education.
Wow.
I was not a choppy. I was not. I don't think I inherited anything educational in them. But that's who they were. So they were both teachers and in the highest rank of teaching, and they were very proud about it.
Wow.
Then they were. My father went to Lourdes at the time I was being born, I think in 1974. He had traveled to Lourdes as a delegation of this country to go and see where the Virgin Mary had appeared in France.
Wow.
What?
He traveled to Rome. He went to see the Vatican. He had done these trips as a Catholic. He had done pilgrimage. Yeah.
Wow.
He had relics in the house where he got this, I don't know from where, who blessed him. And a story he tells is that because we are 5 boys who are, and my sister is the last born, after he came from, I think, Vatican is when he got a girl
Wow.
whom he'd been looking for all these years.
Wow.
Yes. And that's how he got a girl to balance out all his boys.
Wow.
Yeah. So my parents were people who knew without education, they were not existing. Without their jobs as civil servants, then nothing existed. So for us, they instill in us, actually, I think they never even considered we would even do businesses. So they didn't even give us examples or opportunities to meet even their friends who did very well in business. Even their own classmates who are high ranking in this country, they only talked of the ones that they school with who are civil servants or employed by corporates. My uncle, who is my elder uncle, my elder dad in African culture, the firstborn brother to my dad.
That's your paternal.
My paternal uncle
Okay.
went to Liberia for his A-levels. And he traveled.
In what year is that?
I think he left this country in 1954, if not 55. And he traveled by road.
No way.
When you say by road, was it by foot? Was it by bike?
Most of it by foot.
Okay, do you guys understand the geography of where Liberia is?
I can tell you, because he used to send photos by post. Yeah. And my dad was the one who'd received those photos.
But that's in West Africa, Njuguna.
Yes, he left for Uganda, went through Uganda, I think Rwanda, Congo, and you know there are 2 Congos. Then it was just Congo,
Zaire,
Central Africa, Nigeria, I think Togo, Ghana, all the way to Liberia, to the other side of Africa. So partly would be they also did like the way the missionaries did. It was a big delegation of people. It was like, I don't know if you've seen movies of people from Mexico going to US, the way they cross forests
like
and do
the
that.
Great Trek.
Yes, it's like, indeed, it was a great trek. So,
I mean, that's the only thing I can
he went to pursue education, and that's how education was important. That would risk his life to just get that education.
But why not get education here?
Because
what was
they
so
were
special about Liberia?
They were the children of Mau Mau, and being children of Mau Mau, education was not one of the things. So he was almost like running away.
Okay.
And my grandfather was a Mau Mau I think he didn't go to the forest, but he was a collaborator.
Mhm.
But among his brothers, there were those that were in the bush.
Mhm.
So he was, and my grandfather was a forester. So that's how he escaped. But because of being him in the forest, he managed to help the Mau Mau. And his children could not get school admission in normal schools. So he went to Liberia. And that is how he got to go to US in the University of South Carolina and Arizona. And he came back to this country in 1958 with a Master's of Science in Agrochemistry.
Wow.
Yes. So education for us and our family, the larger family, will have been a very important thing for our parents. Everyone talked about their excellence in school. To date, my dad still talks how he did well in school.
So how was the sense of order in your family? Like, I can imagine, did you have like time to go and just play? Because your parents are focusing on, you must excel. I mean, I am your class teacher. I cannot be reading your name as the last student.
No.
How was that in the house?
One day in grade 5, my mother cried. My mom was a hardened woman. She cried tears I had never seen her cry before because I couldn't read in English. I couldn't speak a sentence in English, despite those accolades of knowing what a noun is.
Yeah.
But that was just showbiz for me. Then he sat really and realized his son can't read.
Oof. And she's
Must have been
teacher.
painful.
Yeah, now I know I had dyslexia. Then I didn't know what I had. Now I know. I know I had autism.
Ooh.
I didn't know.
Ooh.
But yes, it's not like it's an infection. It's just like
No, I'm just thinking
some
the misunderstanding,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
So she cried because she was an English teacher.
My goodness.
And she thought that's how she became my class teacher. I think she forced me to go to her class. So I started learning to read, write in grade 5. Now my son has made me say grade. Standard 5.
Standard 5.
Standard
Sorry,
5.
Not even class.
You pronounce it the way I'm saying, standard 5.
Standard D.
So education, that's how much it was. And also, she was very saddened when I couldn't make it to that school that had a headmistress who was a white lady. The contrast between me and my brothers, for 3 of my elder brothers, is that they could speak polished English, British English. My parents could speak good English, but their son, who is a 4th born, couldn't speak. My younger siblings could speak. And that was a real depression.
Wow.
I didn't do very well in school, just for your not asking me. But we are pursuing education even now. Yes.
Very interesting.
We are continuous learners.
It's so interesting, actually, just to piggyback on the previous conversation we're having on identity. And I remember my story, and I was going to cry to my parents about playing the guitar, and the way there was emphasis on education, yes, but the pressure was not like their time.
Yes.
That pressure, I didn't feel pressured to have to pursue my education all the way to a master's, a PhD. And even that pressure to learn good English or perfect English, I feel like now that's where I'm like, what do you mean?
I think for me, I feel that our parents, my parents and your parents were in the same generation.
Yes.
Yeah, because for us, there wasn't an aspiration of like a PhD, I become this. It wasn't distinct.
Yeah.
But there was no room for extracurricular activities.
No.
I remember my father was the head of Parents Teachers Association, and this day he just drops by at school. You never know if they're coming. You're not privy to that. And I was playing the game where you put sand and you're supposed to fill the bottle.
Yeah.
And I was the one at the center, the action of taking kokota mchanga,
You are the
nakuweka, and then you can't even swap. You can't say you are helping. Like,
No.
all action was on me.
Red-handed.
And my dad walks by the pitch. I could not hide the punishment I received that day.
Yes.
Because of wasting time.
I
with
was
sand.
wasting time.
So
I'm tying into like, for them, it was that you had to do well and you had to do well in school.
Very, very well.
Yeah.
Their dream was that you would have a career with a name. Your career must have an identifiable name, a lawyer, a doctor, those careers that had a name. Even even you couldn't say that you want to become. I remember when they asked me what I want to be. The first one I said I want to be the president, and everyone
You are
had never had that. Maybe I'm still pursuing it.
You should.
At least the title president nowadays is not as
Yeah,
as it
anybody
was those
can
days.
be.
Eh?
It's not beautiful
Yeah.
I
like
can
that.
be the president of my company.
Yes.
And then I was told to revise. I said I want to be a tailor.
Hey,
From president to
to
tailor.
Taylor.
where
What
are you?
was going on?
I became a disappointment because my immediate neighbor was a tailor.
Oh, it is what
And
you
he
were
had just
actually
bought
saying.
a car. And he used to
Immediate
make
neighbor.
very fine suits.
Ooh,
Wow.
Okay.
Yes, I thought he was doing well. I mean, and they were doing well in life.
Yeah.
Yes, Gabriel was a guy who did very well.
Ah.
How do you buy a car when you're a tailor?
I mean.
And they used to make school uniform as well, you know, those days.
Yeah.
So, but now I know what I was manifesting in. One, you should know that I went to politics. I pursued a political post.
So the presidency.
The presidency came
Haiko
somehow.
mbali sana.
And my Juakali years, my life in Juakali without a title, I was a sign lighter. So I also did design. I did fabric design. I did all that. I even went to school to do that because my parents could not. And to connect that tailor story with with my parents is that I went to college by myself. I was never paid for school fees. So I took myself to Shaurimoyo. There's a school that was there. And near my graduation, I told my parents, I used to go to school for the last 2 years. And I left it at that. They were amazed. They were impressed. And the following day, I found them seated at the principal's office,
Wow.
perusing my folder, my big folder, to see whether truly this boy goes to school. Because they knew I didn't love school at all. I was not the guys whose school was their
Their favorite thing.
No.
I think I'm just getting from you that being in a home that valued education, there was some sense of order that was instilled in you. There was a sense of ambition to become something that people knew.
Yes.
And also there was a constant conflict within yourself.
Yes.
You know, you're trying to fit as much as you can.
Yeah.
But then you had, other things that you're struggling with, just mentioning that you had dyslexia,
Yes.
And I'm just like, okay, your parents were in the teaching profession.
Yes.
Didn't they see this? Weren't they aware that there's such a situation that somebody can have and be and get better support?
Not when you're a child of a teacher. There are things, conditions, or opportunities you don't have. Like being number last in school was not something you even knew you would become.
You can't think about it.
Actually, top 10 was like where they don't make noise.
Wow.
And I usually was number 12. So they were always like, now you only have 2 to beat to start looking like you're making sense. And then even as I was telling you, when they went to college, that day they were so happy that finally I started understanding what they wanted for me in life.
And let me ask,
Yes.
just the tension. I can imagine the tension in your relationship because these are parents who are looking for a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher.
Yes.
And here you are, dibbling and dabbling.
Yeah.
And being funny while at it. Because you sounded very, you're not
I was
very
very
serious.
cheeky. No, I was not. Actually, as you said about sports, I never played any sports. I don't even even to date, I don't even have a football team. I'm not like other men who have a team.
I mean,
Sorry.
you are a fighter.
Yes.
From what you shared.
But I knew I had a love for theater. My village, also to tell you the backstory, I come from Kamiredo village, which is where Ngugi wa Thiong'o had an open theater. And therefore I grew up going to that open theater every Sunday.
Love that.
My dad being a teacher was also the guy who manned one of the gates. So it meant theater for me was something that was unlimited and I accessed international standards kind of theater.
But Njuguna, it's important to recognize.
Yes.
And I don't know if you have before, but you really did have a lot of privilege.
Yeah.
Did I?
Yeah.
You're talking about
Okay.
theater.
Teacher.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the parents who are teachers here are also opening doors.
Yes.
Whether they want you to be an artist or not, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But the fact that they were the ones manning, they were in charge of, that space, and they would allow you access it.
Actually, my
There was
dad,
a sense of
my dad went to University of Newcastle to do art.
wow.
The current form of CBC was being formed then. And therefore, they went to learn skills it was a scholarship by the Ministry of Education or the British Council to change the education system from the colonial time kind of education, which later became recommended the 844 system.
Okay.
But they had gone to pursue education to come and bring changes in the education sector. And art was one of the things that was being introduced in education, and that's what he pursued. So I grew up also in a space where I had a lot of materials for drawing. I saw color palettes, expensive Winsor and those kind of very good grade paintings and brushes and canvases and books.
Wow.
So, of course, I wouldn't say privilege because also, because our parents feared poverty a lot, there are things they would have never let you feel like that privilege. You could not feel it. So also to answer her question again about how my 14th, 12-year-old, it meant that when I woke up at 5 o'clock, which was the time everyone woke up any day of the week, we had chickens. So we had chicken coops that we used to have about 1,000 chickens at one time. We had sheep and we had cattle. And there was, of course, a big family to cook breakfast for and warm water to shower. We never used to shower at night. We were showered always in the morning. So it meant when you wake up, all of you, you get into some system of productivity. You get into the chicken coop, you get to milk the cows, to feed the cows or the sheep. And therefore, that order was there. It was a must you organize your life that way. And I think even up today, I like organizing my life that way. Early mornings, okay, I'm not a very early morning person, but whatever time I wake up, I want to start almost immediately to start doing something.
Feeling productive.
Yeah, I want to start productivity immediately I open my eyes. And the good of that in life, it also made us to be very industrious. So it was difficult even right now for me to stay idle. I don't know what is idle. I don't know how to relax. Even when I'm on leave or on holiday, I still don't relax. I have to do something.
And that is speaking to
And
now.
holiday is not a privilege. So those things, I don't know what they are.
You see, and that is speaking, and that outlook is speaking to another generation. And I'm just highlighting this because more often than not, we want to be very clear of the differences,
Yes.
Like, that generation does not understand us. We are as unique as we present. But as you're saying that, I feel like you're like speaking about the generation I exist in, because it sounds very ambitious. It sounds very active. Like you have this one job and then you want to do 10 other things for you to feel like really you are optimizing the whole of you.
Yes. Yes.
And that to me is that we really have to, as much as we understand singularly the generations that we represent, it's good to actually learn about other generations and look at, some of these similarities and then how best can we lean in and collaborate and work together,
And even with empathy.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes there's that disconnect.
You don't want to bash the current generation because you also had your problems. Of course, there are things you see your parents didn't pursue. They should have. Like sometimes you think most of the people of my generation, the one thing I hear them say is that our parents never pursued business or investment to that kind of direction. And also they never taught us about money. We never saw their money. We never saw cash in the house.
And maybe while you're at that, you can even elaborate on how was that parenting style for those parents,
That was
that informed your identity.
It was a military style of parenting. Because as I've told you, they went to Catholic schools and people who went to Catholic schools have this, maybe not now, but those days, they used to be very formal and very organized and very straightforward. So for them, discipline was visible and tangible. There was no way you would say, I'm disciplined, but I can't show how I've been sat in the house in one place. Yeah, or sat in the kitchen when guests come.
Yeah.
Or I didn't cook dinner when I came home, or I didn't feed the chickens
Sorry.
when I came.
I'm laughing because it's giving Sunday outfits.
Yes.
Did you guys have that?
Oh. Now that you
I'm
talk
sure they
privilege,
did.
let
It was
me
worse.
also give you more privilege.
Uh-huh.
Is that every year, my dad took us to town, downtown city. He used to own a pickup, a Chevrolet. So we'd be parked in the back, those matatus, and dropped in Moy Avenue. Is it Moy Avenue? I think Kimadi Street. There used to be a clothes shop, I think either Deacon's or one of those shops, and buy you a full outfit apart from your shoe. And the shoe will get from Bata, of course, but a full outfit for Sunday best outfit
Yeah.
to last you a
It was
whole year.
important.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was good. That was very, very, very good. Yeah, I looked forward to those trips, although it was the only trip to town for the whole year as well.
Damn, guys.
Yeah.
And then you go to Bata shop, measure your shoe, and that is how they lived. Then you get your check for the school fees for the year.
You were given like this.
Yes, it is
Your parents trusted you.
paper, yes, but
Wow.
not cash.
Paper.
A
Okay.
check. My dad was very good with writing and organized. So he would give you a check, whether it's a loan he has taken or not. He gives you a check for the year. So you are all arranged. There are 6 of us. Everyone, your check. So it was military style. So if you dress up, you're all in the same kind of outfits. Because of course the shops never had a lot of. You went to the cheapest counters, but they were not like high class clothes, but they were good. They were very good to those standards. And that is what we went to church every Sunday. You never changed your Sunday outfit. Yes.
And now that we are just exploring your time
Yes.
and trying to understand how you developed identity and picking that education was critical.
Yes.
And the fact that your parents appreciated education was critical on how you developed your identity. What is the one thing that amazes you of the generations that have come after you? Like, hey, ukiwaangalia, you're like, where?
The millennials.
No, I think one of the things I'm really happy about my parents, and I don't think I match up to them, is first of all, their value system. They had a very organized lives. And the way they looked at life, community life was very important to them.
These are the
Family,
baby boomers.
They took care of their brothers and sisters. To date, I know my dad worries about his siblings, and they are guys in their 80s. But he worries about them to date because that's how he's been used to, and they love each other so much. I don't think we have that bond with my brothers. The second thing, I think they are...
So just to cut you short, and that is for the generation that came before you.
Yeah,
so that they are very centered around community and the Utu and Ujamaa aspect,
yes.
Okay.
Ubuntu was in them. And religion or their spirituality was grounded on True North, depending on what True North meant.
Na ile inakushangaza kwa generation yako sasa.
As that True North shifts depending on the problems you're going on with life. If you're doing well family-wise, like your relationship, then you're religious and you're good and God is good. But when trouble comes, you say, YOLO, you live once. I've seen us shift. We are not stuck to, of course, it is old school, but I don't see us sticking to certain...
You're not linear.
Yeah. We are not linear. We are very broad. But also the danger of being that disorganized is that depression sets in and you don't know where to seek your counsel. You don't know where to seek your homage. You know, every device has a place it connects back to.
Na sisi tunakushangaza na nini?
Your relationships.
Ooh. Wow.
Yes. Not just with the other person, but even with your own. The way you relate to yourself.
Wow.
I don't know how you can, I don't know, the way you understand your life. every time somebody who is young explains to me what they believe in, what they are doing, it becomes very amazing. It's shocking that people might not even belong to any identity in terms of spirituality. Yeah, you believe in nothing and you're
To
happy.
you, that is very wild.
It's very weird. How do you not believe in something or someone? Actually, you believe in someone. Yeah.
Wow.
And then the other thing is also now that how that manifests into the other relationships.
Okay.
Because you grew up, like a TV for you guys was something you watched almost every day.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you watch soap.
Soap operas.
The relationship in the soaps always tells how the generation was.
No one but you.
Yes, so you can do
You
cross
can judge me.
generation. You can do
Stop right there.
Yes.
Stop right
So sometimes it worries me.
You're being judged.
Yeah.
Can I tell you? I'm not so old school. I'm a bit liberal, but to date, a miniskirt still shocks me when I see somebody in it.
Wow. You are a true baby boomer.
Though
They are happy that you're here.
I have a picture of my mom in a miniskirt.
And to think I wanted to come here with a miniskirt.
No, you'd have disrupted this identity
I'm just
development.
saying, it's not that it shocks me. My mom wore miniskirts, but my generation wore even a trouser to wear was a big shift for a woman.
Wow.
It was liberation, like an identity for liberation.
Wow.
So if your mom wore a trouser, where?
Something is changing in this house.
Yeah, that
A
was
lot of changing.
Your dad is in problems.
It's
Too
going to
liberal,
happen.
too liberal.
Yeah.
I think as we are coming to the end of this, just to hear like Dosila, you're listening to Njuguna here, and we have arrived at the feet of the Mau and when they're living and seen how different developing identity was then. I don't know. What are you taking away from this?
I think my biggest takeaway from this is I now know that they understand. I don't feel so disconnected. Yeah. And therefore the fear to just express kind of like has dissipated because at some point I was like, they wouldn't understand, they wouldn't understand our perspective. So for me, I find that this conversation makes it easier for me to know that there's space and room for all of us to exist. And also depending on what is going on in society, it informs how we choose to identify ourselves. Because listening to his parents, I got a picture of what they valued, and those were the things they instilled in him. And for me, I'm thinking about my dad and what he valued, and those were the things he's tried to instill in me. And then as you grow, then you get to decide what are some of these things that you get to hold on to, what are some of these things that you get to kind of like let them go easily with respect and love as you're developing yourself. So I think even when we met, I felt like, hey, will we connect?
Because of how, she's saying how Asian.
How Mama
In a
I am.
nice way.
Yes,
And right now I'm just like, go there tenor. If you know what that means.
Yeah.
Like we can actually connect and find a middle ground to relate on. Yeah.
What about you, Njuguna? Ziggy, you've shocked her.
Yeah.
Your dad was woke about a Ziggy.
Yes.
For a name.
No, it's because there are habits I had in school that made me get that name.
Fighting.
I was a school doctor. So just in short.
Okay. You are so many things.
Yes. And what I think looking at her generation is to think that nothing has been done nothing that is being done right now that has not been done before.
Okay.
So in terms of uprising of young people deciding that they will not conform, we didn't conform. We refused to conform. My parents refused to conform. Then thinking that there's opportunity to connect all generations, I think there is. And there's beauty in borrowing a lot from what people have gathered along the way. So still, older generations have something to give to the next generation. And doesn't matter what it is you're doing. Maybe I might not have an opportunity to advise you on how to do a good podcast. But imagine if the next person coming to do the podcast, you have something to give to them and tell them, at least check this. So I think we still have a lot that we can share with the world. And we're Africans after all. Africans, we build our knowledge and identity on folklore, on music, on narratives, on those things we did as Africans that gave us an identity. So we can still explore those areas and those that are already viable right now and keep telling stories like we are telling. Yeah.
I think for me, as you're speaking, the thing that I take away is in how your generation expresses itself.
Yeah.
And at times, it has contributed to the barrier. Because that statement that you actually use, actually, there is nothing new.
Yes,
Because every
yes.
new generation does not want to hear.
There's
Yeah.
nothing new.
Even when it's in Swahili, it even sounds bad. Hakuna kitu mpya bana. Hizo
Yes.
vitu hata sisi tulifanya.
Yeah.
It's like invalidating.
We are the inventors of that, what you're trying to do.
Invalidating that.
Yes,
and
yes.
as a generation, you yearn for uniqueness.
Yeah.
But again, what I hear is that if we can soften that, if we can soften that, there's nothing new. Because in approach and in demeanor, I think then we are opening it up for collaboration, for impacting that wisdom that you have,
Yes.
for also, accepting the feedback. Because even for you in the generation that you are, to know that you are giving wisdom, it's in the feedback
Yes, yes.
that you receive. It's in the shift of mindset, ideology that you keep seeing in the next generation.
Yeah.
But then if there is resistance, clearly there is an issue to do with approach and things like that. So I think there is room, but it is in the how.
No,
But
we
it
can't
is-
sing a song.
Yeah.
We can't sing go that's we can't do that.
Of course, we don't want you to. We don't want you to, by
Maybe
the way.
we'll open TikTok channels.
No,
But
guys.
you are welcome to plug in. Plug in
yeah.
all the platforms that keep you connected.
We are slow at adopting
Yeah.
technology,
Yeah.
despite us being the pioneers of technology, bringing technology to Kenya. But still, we are slow in adopting because we do things slowly. Slowly.
Okay.
Yeah.
We appreciate you as you present.
I think for me, I have to say this before we finish.
Yeah.
I am so jealous that you
Yeah.
had access to theater.
Yes.
Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Like, I'm just
Oh,
like, guys,
yes,
I am
yes.
so jealous because I feel like even today, like theater in Nairobi in Kenya is not what it was like during Ngugi wa Thiong'o when literature was just that thing.
Yeah.
So I'm very jealous.
So
yeah.
maybe
I think
I never
this
thought I'd
conversation
ever
is
say that.
becoming hotter.
maybe what we should do
Uh-huh.
is co-create a theater.
I think this
Maybe.
conversation is becoming dangerous.
Yes.
And do you know why it is?
Mhm.
Because we have some ancient humans
He can't stop telling
who
tales.
cannot stop telling
Folk
stories.
tales. Yes, that's
Anyway,
what.
we appreciate you and your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for
very
showing
much.
up. Thank you for allowing us to just travel with you
Yeah,
in that
yeah,
great trek, historical moment.
Yes.
That still, validate that identity development has a lot of similarities,
Yeah.
even with your generation.
Yes.
And we wish to have had more time
Yeah. No.
But we welcome you
Always
back.
welcome.
to TikTok
At
as
my-
well and
yeah,
any
yeah,
other
yeah.
platform.
At my age now, I think my next preoccupation is to tell folk tales and tell stories to young people.
Yes, that would be amazing. I would enjoy it.
we really have to go.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Eh,
Thank you.
kuongea na wazee lakini.
Wazee waongea, prekagwa
Jasho.
rakaraka. Now we are not timed. We tell stories.
Sawa, sawa.
Thank you very much.
Anyways, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We hope you were, engaged as we were in studio and just, reliving the childhood memories that we existed in and that we got to exist in through our guest. Please do join us next time if you have the time and just comment, tell us what you liked about this particular episode. If you have any questions, if there's something you'd like us to highlight in the next one, we'd love to hear from you. From Njuguna Podcast. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.